January 27 is not arriving like an ordinary day. There is a weight to it, a pressure in the atmosphere that many can feel but cannot yet explain. This is not about fear, and it is not about superstition. It is about timing. According to this message, Archangel Michael says that today opens a window that will not remain open for long. That alone should make you pause, because in the spiritual realm, a window is never casual language. A window represents access, alignment, and permission. It is an opening created by divine timing, not human effort. And when such a window opens, it does so with intention. The reason this message matters so deeply is because what you do with it today has the power to influence what comes next in ways you may not fully see yet. Many people assume that if something is meant for them, it will wait. But that assumption has quietly caused more missed moments than open rebellion ever has. January 27 carries a narrow opportunity, not because God withholds goodness, but because certain outcomes require movement within a specific moment. This is not about earning anything. It is about being in position. Archangel Michael's warning is clear in its tone. This window will not stay open long. That means delay is not neutral. Waiting is not harmless. Indecision itself becomes a decision when time-sensitive alignment is involved. There are days when messages are comforting, and there are days when messages are instructional. Today is instructional. The urgency you may feel right now is not anxiety. It is recognition. Something in your spirit already knows that this is not just another video, not just another message, not just another date on the calendar. January 27 is marked because it intersects with a transition that was already forming beneath the surface. The reason this feels sudden is because spiritual shifts often reveal themselves only when they are ready to be acted upon. A window, by its nature, suggests both opportunity and limitation. It allows light, air, and movement, but it also has edges. You cannot walk through it whenever you want. You move when it is open. Archangel Michael's message is not vague encouragement. It is a direct alert that access is available now, but not indefinitely. Understanding this message now can change what comes next because awareness precedes choice. What you recognize today determines what you are able to respond to tomorrow. This is why the instruction is so clear. Open this immediately. Not later today. Not after you finish everything else. Immediately. That word carries weight. It implies that there is something already in motion, and your response is meant to meet it. You are not behind. You are not late. You are here on time. But timing does not pause to wait for comfort. It moves forward whether we engage or not. January 27 is significant because it functions as a hinge point. A hinge is small, often overlooked, but it determines the direction of an entire door. Without the hinge, the door cannot move. With it, everything changes direction. This day acts like that hinge. What follows is influenced by how this moment is handled. Archangel Michael appears in messages when courage is required, when protection is active, and when decisive movement matters. His presence signals that resistance may exist, but so does divine covering. That combination tells you this is not a passive season. It is an active one. If you feel a sense of seriousness right now that is appropriate, this message is not meant to entertain. It is meant to awaken. There are moments when heaven speaks softly, and moments when it speaks clearly. Today is clarity. The reason understanding this message now can change what comes next is because ignorance delays action, and action is what activates alignment. Nothing is forced here. You are being informed, not pressured. But information itself creates responsibility. The phrase "won't stay open long" should not frighten you. but it should focus you. It tells you that procrastination is the only real danger here. The window does not close because you are unworthy. It closes because windows are designed to open and close according to purpose. Missing it does not mean destruction, but it does mean a different route, often longer and more complicated than necessary. This is why divine warnings are acts of mercy, not threats. January 27 carries an invitation disguised as urgency. It invites you to pay attention, to become present, and to take this message seriously enough to let it adjust your posture. Something is being made available that aligns with what comes next in your life, but alignment requires awareness. That is why you are hearing this now. That is why this message found you when it did. And that is why opening this immediately matters more than you realize. This is the context. This is the weight of today. This is not the moment to scroll past or half listen. This is a day marked by access, framed by timing, and guarded by instruction. Archangel Michael's message is not about panic. He is about readiness. And readiness begins with understanding that this moment is different. This window is real, and what comes next is influenced by what you do with what you are hearing right now. There is a reason this message did not reach you yesterday, and there is a reason it did not wait until tomorrow. January 27 did not randomly place itself in front of you. In moments like this, timing is not coincidence. It is coordination. You may have clicked without thinking much about it, or you may have felt an inner pull you couldn't explain. But either way, the result is the same. You are here, hearing this, at the exact moment this message is meant to be heard. That alone tells you something important. Messages tied to divine windows do not wander aimlessly. They arrive where awareness is possible. Many people think being chosen means being singled out for ease or comfort, but more often it means being trusted with awareness. Awareness carries responsibility. If this message is reaching you today, it is because you are capable of responding to it. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but consciously. There is something ahead that requires you to see before you step. This message is not chasing you. It is meeting you where you are, because this is where readiness begins. You may have noticed that recently your attention hath been sharpening. Things that once distracted you no longer satisfy you the same way. Conversations feel shallow. Delays feel heavier. There is an internal sense that something is shifting, even if you cannot yet name it. That is not restlessness. That is preparation. When Archangel Michael's messages surface, they often do so for those standing at the edge of movement. Not movement for show, but movement that matters. The reason this message found you today is also because you are not meant to navigate this moment alone. Awareness grows stronger when it is shared. This is why you are part of this space, hearing this alongside others who are also sensing that something is different about this day. There is power in collective recognition. When many people become aware at once, momentum forms. And momentum is what carries people through narrow windows before they close. This is also why engagement matters right now. Not as a habit, not as a routine, but as a declaration of presence. When you like this message, when you share it, when you leave a comment acknowledging that something in it resonates, you are not feeding an algorithm. You are anchoring awareness. You are saying, I am here. I'm paying attention. And that posture matters more than people realize. If this message is stirring something in you, take a moment to interact with it. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, not out of obligation, but because alignment grows through continued clarity. Sharing this message may place it in front of someone else who needs to hear it before their own window closes. Ignoring divine warnings is rarely dramatic. It is quiet. It looks like delay. It looks like distraction. It looks like telling yourself you will return to it later. That is why messages like this are delivered with urgency but without panic. You are not being rushed. You are being invited to stay present. Presence is the difference between passing by a moment and stepping into it. If you are wondering why this message feels personal, it is because timing always feels personal when it intersects with direction. This is not about predicting the future. It is about positioning yourself correctly within it. Understanding why you are hearing this today helps you respond instead of react. The action is driven by pressure. Response is driven by clarity. Today is about clarity. You are not here because you have everything figured out. You are here because you are willing to listen. That willingness is what qualifies you for the next instruction. January 27 does not demand perfection. It invites attentiveness. The window that has opened does not require you to leap blindly. It requires you to notice that it exists. As you continue listening, allow yourself to remain open rather than defensive. Messages like this are easy to dismiss if they threaten comfort. But comfort is rarely the goal of transition moments. Growth requires awareness, and awareness often arrives before explanation. You may not yet see the full picture, but you are being given enough light for the next step. Stay connected as this message unfolds. Each part builds upon the last, not to overwhelm you, but to steady you. There is more clarity coming, and it is important that you receive it in sequence. This is not a message to skim. It is a message to walk through slowly, with intention. The fact that you are here now means you are already responding. And that response, however small it feels, is already shifting what comes next. What is opening right now is not an ordinary opportunity, and it is not something created by circumstances alone. This is a spiritual window, and that distinction matters. A spiritual window opens when timing, readiness, and permission align at the same moment. It is not forced open by effort, and it cannot be held open by willpower. It appears when something behind you signals that movement is now possible. January 27 carries that signal. What is opening is access. Access to alignment that has been forming quietly, sometimes painfully, over time. Many people misunderstand spiritual windows because they expect them to arrive with dramatic signs or instant clarity. But most windows open subtly. They often arrive as an internal nudge, a heightened awareness, or a sudden seriousness about things you previously postponed. You may feel drawn to make a decision you avoided, to speak a truth you've delayed, or to release something you've been holding onto out of habit rather than conviction. That pull is not random. It is the sensation of a window opening. What makes this window different is its narrowness. Some seasons are wide and forgiving. This one is precise. Precision does not mean cruelty. It means purpose. This window is connected to sequence. Something that comes next depends on what happens now. That is why understanding this message now can change what comes next. When sequence is involved, timing becomes essential. Acting too early creates confusion. Acting too late creates delay. Acting on time creates flow. You may be tempted to wait for more information, more confirmation, or more confidence. But spiritual windows rarely open after confidence arrives. Confidence often follows obedience, not the other way around. What is opening now invites trust before certainty. I can feel uncomfortable, especially for those who prefer control. But this is not a reckless invitation. It is a guided one. Archangel Michael's presence in this message signals protection, not danger. It means that while movement is required, you are not moving alone. There is also a warning embedded here, and it is important to understand it correctly. The warning is not that something terrible will happen if you miss this window. The warning is that delay will rout momentum. When a window closes, it does not mean the destination disappears. It means the path changes. Often, it becomes longer, more complex, and heavier than it needed to be. This is why the message carries urgency without threat. It is an act of mercy to tell you when timing matters. Right now, what is opening is an invitation to alignment. Alignment between what you sense internally and what you choose externally. Many people live with constant misalignment, feeling one thing and doing another. This window offers a chance to correct that. It may involve a decision, a conversation, a commitment, or a release. It will not look the same for everyone, but it will feel similar. It will feel like a quiet moment where you realize, this matters more than I thought. Do not underestimate small actions in moments like this. Windows are often entered through simple obedience, not dramatic gestures. A phone call made, a habit ended, a boundary set, a step taken despite uncertainty. These are the movements that align you with what comes next. Waiting for the perfect moment within a narrow window often results in missing it entirely. The perfect moment is now. If you are feeling resistance, that does not mean you are doing something wrong. Resistance often appears when something significant is at stake. It is the friction between old patterns and new direction. Acknowledge it, but do not let it lead. The presence of resistance does not negate the opening. It confirms that change is involved. This window is also an invitation to pay attention to your inner responses. Notice what stands out to you today. Notice what feels highlighted. Notice what keeps returning to your thoughts. These are not distractions. They are indicators. The spiritual realm often communicates through repetition when urgency is present. As this part of the message settles, understand this clearly. The window is open now, not because you are ready in every way, but because readiness is no longer the requirement. Willingness is. Willingness to listen. Willingness to move. Willingness to trust that what you do not yet see will be revealed as you step forward. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. Type I am chosen in the comments if this resonates with you. Lesson code 314 is now activated. This moment you are standing in is not only for you. It is for every soul who is still waiting to hear truth before their window closes. As the word says, when seed is sown in good ground, heaven releases a harvest beyond measure, and right now God is speaking that promise directly over this mission. I feel led to tell you plainly, your action in this moment becomes a river that carries light to others who cannot yet see. When you activate super thanks, membership, or give through PayPal using the link in the description or the PayPal QR code flashing on the screen, you are not donating, you are obeying. This is a prophetic response, not a transaction. I speak blessing over every giver, that what you release will return pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. Do it now, and let heaven record your obedience as part of this unfolding moment. When Archangel Michael is present in a message tied to timing, it is never accidental, and it is never symbolic filler. His presence marks moments where decisions carry weight beyond what is immediately visible. Michael appears when movement is required, when hesitation could quietly shift destiny, and when courage must rise above comfort. January 27 is not just a date with opportunity. It is a moment guarded by strength. That alone tells you this window is not casual. It is significant enough to require protection, clarity, and resolve all at once. Archangel Michael is known as a defender, not only against external opposition, but against internal confusion. Many people assume that spiritual resistance always comes from outside forces, but more often it comes from within, through doubt, fear disguised as logic, or the urge to delay under the appearance of wisdom. Michael's role in moments like this is to separate truth from noise. He stands where clarity is needed most, ensuring that fear does not speak louder than alignment. This is important because the window opening now requires movement before full comfort arrives. Comfort is rarely present at the beginning of meaningful transitions. Instead, reassurance comes through protection. Archangel Michael's presence signals that while the path ahead may feel unfamiliar, it is not unguarded. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into order that has not yet fully revealed itself. A distinction matters, especially for those who hesitate unless everything feels secure first. Michael is often associated with decisive moments because indecision is one of the most subtle forms of resistance. It does not look like rebellion. It looks like waiting. Waiting for certainty. Waiting for signs. Waiting for conditions to improve. But some windows are not waiting windows. They are moving windows. Michael's energy cuts through that paralysis. He does not remove your ability to choose, but he strengthens your ability to choose rightly when timing matters. Another key role Archangel Michael plays is reinforcing spiritual authority. When a window opens that can alter what comes next, authority must be established so that fear does not dominate the process. Authority does not mean control over outcomes. It means confidence in direction. If you feel a quiet firmness growing beneath your uncertainty today, that is not imagination. That is authority settling in. It does not shout. It's steady. Protection in this moment does not mean absence of challenge. It means challenges will not derail purpose. Archangel Michael does not eliminate resistance. He ensures resistance does not decide the outcome. This is a crucial difference. Many people misinterpret difficulty as a sign they are moving the wrong way. In reality, difficulty often appears when alignment threatens old patterns. Michael's presence reassures you that difficulty does not equal danger. It often equals significance. You may notice that old fears are resurfacing right now. Not new fears, but familiar ones. Doubts you thought you had moved past. Questions you have asked before. That resurfacing is not regression. It is exposure. What surfaces in moments like this is what can no longer travel with you. Archangel Michael's role includes revealing what must be released so that movement can occur unencumbered. He guards the transition by lightening the load. Another aspect of Michael's involvement is courage that arrives at the moment of action, not before. Many people wait to feel brave before they move. But courage, in its truest form, often arrives after the first step is taken. Michael's presence ensures that courage meets you in motion. You are not required to feel fearless now. You are required to move honestly. Fear loses authority when it is acknowledged, but not obeyed. There is also a sense of seriousness that accompanies Michael's presence. This is not heaviness meant to overwhelm you. It is focus. It quiets distractions and sharpens attention. If you feel less interested in surface-level noise today and more drawn toward what truly matters, that is not accidental. That is prioritization at work. Archangel Michael brings that narrowing so that important moments are not diluted by unnecessary concerns. Clarity is another form of protection, and Michael guards it fiercely. Confusion drains energy and delays action. Clarity restores momentum. Even if you do not yet know every detail, clarity about the need to move is enough. You are not being asked to map the entire journey. You are being asked to acknowledge the direction. Michael's role is to hold that direction steady when emotions fluctuate. This message is meant to reassure you, not intimidate you. Archangel Michael does not stand near moments to frighten those involved. He stands to ensure they are not alone. His presence confirms that what is opening now has been considered, weighed, and guarded. You are not stepping forward without covering. You are stepping forward because covering is already in place. As January 27 unfolds, remember this truth. When Archangel Michael is near a moment, it is because that moment matters enough to protect. This window is opening with intention, strength, and authority already assigned to it. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. When a message warns that a window will not stay open long, it is natural to wonder what is actually at risk. This is not about punishment, loss of worth, or divine withdrawal. It is about alignment and sequence. What is at risk if this window closes is not your future, but the shape of it. Timing influences trajectory, and trajectory determines how something unfolds. Missing a window does not erase what is meant for you, but it often alters how directly you arrive there. One of the greatest misunderstandings about spiritual timing is the belief that delay is neutral. Delay feels harmless because nothing visibly breaks in the moment. Life continues. Days move forward, but beneath the surface, momentum shifts. When a window closes, the flow that was available becomes restricted, not because it was taken away, but because it was not entered. The cost is subtle at first. It appears as longer waiting, repeated cycles, or lessons that resurface instead of resolving. What is at risk is ease. Certain moments are designed to be lighter than others, not because the destination is easy, but because the path is momentarily clear. Windows open when resistance is temporarily lowered, when access is granted, and when movement can occur with less friction. When that moment passes, movement is still possible, but it often requires more effort, more endurance, and more unlearning than would have been necessary before. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to clarify why urgency matters. Another thing at risk is clarity. Windows often bring insight alongside opportunity. When they close, confusion can increase, not as punishment, but as a natural result of misalignment. Clarity thrives in motion aligned with timing. When motion stalls, clarity often fades. People then spend time searching for answers that were once present but ignored. This is why many say, "I knew then, but I didn't act." That knowing was the clarity of the window. There is also an emotional cost to delay. Ignoring a moment that felt important can create internal friction. Doubt grows. Regret whispers. Confidence weakens. This does not happen overnight, but it accumulates. Each ignored nudge makes the next one easier to dismiss. Over time, sensitivity dulls. The risk is not that guidance disappears, but that it becomes harder to recognize. Windows train discernment when honored. They erode it when ignored. It is important to understand that missing a window does not mean starting over from nothing. Grace does not evaporate, but paths change. Detours lengthen journeys. Lessons repeat until integrated. What could have been learned through a single act of obedience may take multiple experiences to absorb later. The cost is time, energy, and sometimes unnecessary struggle. This is why divine warnings emphasize timing rather than outcome. Another risk lies in stagnation. When movement is postponed, comfort zones solidify. What once felt temporary begins to feel permanent. People adapt to misalignment without realizing it. They settle into spaces they were meant to pass through. Over time, the discomfort that once signaled move becomes background noise. Windows interrupt that settling. They remind you that where you are is not where you are meant to stay. Ignoring them increases the likelihood of staying too long. There is also a relational aspect to timing. Some windows involve people, conversations, or connections that are only available briefly. When those moments pass, relationships may shift, opportunities may move on, and dynamics may change. This is not always dramatic, but it is real. Being out of sync relationally can create misunderstandings and missed connections that were avoidable with timely action. Spiritually, what is at risk is momentum. Momentum is built through consistent response to guidance. When windows are honored, trust deepens. When they are ignored, hesitation grows. This affects not just one decision, but future ones. The ability to respond quickly and confidently is strengthened through practice. Ignoring windows weakens that muscle. This message is not here to induce fear. Fear freezes. This message is here to awaken responsibility. Responsibility empowers. Knowing what is at risk allows you to choose consciously rather than drift passively. Drift is the real danger, not disobedience. Drift happens quietly, without resistance, without awareness, and without urgency. Windows are designed to interrupt drift. January 27 is one of those interruptions. It asks you to notice what is being offered now, before it blends into memory. The risk is not that everything falls apart if you do nothing. The risk is that something becomes harder than it needed to be. The risk is extra weight on a journey that could have been lighter. The risk is learning through repetition instead of progression. Understanding what is at risk is not meant to burden you. It is meant to sharpen you. Awareness creates agency. You are not being threatened with loss. You are being invited into alignment. And alignment, when chosen on time, preserves energy, clarity, and peace. This window matters not because of what you lose if it closes, but because of what you gain if you step through it while it is open. Before any outer change can take place, there is always an inner shift that must happen first. This is the part most people overlook because it is invisible and deeply personal. Yet it is the most critical part of stepping through a window like the one opening now. What is required of you in this moment is not a dramatic action, but a realignment of posture within. The way you see, the way you decide, and the way you respond must shift before the path ahead can fully open. The inner shift required now begins with honesty. Honest recognition of where you have been delaying, avoiding, or negotiating with yourself. Not out of laziness, but out of fear, uncertainty, or attachment to familiarity. Familiarity can feel safe even when it is no longer life-giving. This window challenges that attachment. It asks you to admit, quietly but truthfully, that some things you have been tolerating are no longer aligned with where you are meant to go next. Another essential shift is releasing the need for complete clarity before moving. Many people believe they are being wise when they wait to see the full picture, but in moments of divine timing, that need can become a barrier. Clarity often unfolds after movement, not before it. The inner work here is learning to trust direction more than details. Direction tells you where to face. Details fill in as you walk. This requires humility, because it means admitting you do not need to know everything in order to obey what you already know. There is also a shift away from comfort-driven decision-making. Comfort is not wrong, but it can't be the compass in transitional moments. Comfort keeps things stable, but stability is not the same as alignment. Sometimes alignment requires discomfort at first, because it stretches you into a new posture. The inner shift is recognizing that temporary discomfort does not equal long-term harm. In fact, it often precedes expansion. This window asks you to value growth over ease. Letting go is another internal adjustment required now. Letting go of old expectations, old timelines, and old versions of yourself that no longer fit. This can be subtle and emotional. You may not be releasing something tangible, but you may be releasing an identity, a role, or a narrative you have been telling yourself for a long time. Letting go does not mean failure. It means evolution. This window does not open for who you were. It opens for who you are becoming. There is also a necessary shift from self-protection to trust. Self-protection is often built from past wounds. It keeps you from being hurt again, but it can also keep you from moving forward. Trust does not mean ignoring wisdom or discernment. It means allowing yourself to move despite the possibility of discomfort. The inner shift here is learning to trust guidance more than past experiences. Past experiences inform you, but they should not imprison you. You may also need to shift from overthinking to listening. Overthinking creates noise. Listening creates clarity. In moments like this, the loudest voice is rarely the truest one. The inner work is learning to quiet internal debates long enough to recognize what feels steady rather than urgent. True alignment carries a calm seriousness beneath any pressure. That calm is what you are being asked to follow. Another internal change involves identity. Windows often open when you are being invited to step into a more grounded version of yourself. This can feel uncomfortable because it requires leaving behind excuses and embracing responsibility. Responsibility is not burden, it is authority. When you take responsibility for your response, you reclaim agency. This inner shift empowers you to move intentionally rather than reactively. You may also notice that this moment calls for courage that feels different from what you are used to. Not loud courage, but quiet resolve. The courage to say yes without applause. The courage to move without external validation. The courage to trust that alignment matters even when no one else sees it yet. This kind of courage is built internally before it is ever expressed externally. The final inner shift required is presence. Being fully present with this moment rather than projecting too far ahead or clinging too tightly to the past. Windows are accessed in the present. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Presence allows you to respond accurately rather than reflexively. When you are present, you can feel when it is time to move instead of guessing. All of these shifts happen internally, often silently. No one else may notice them, but they change everything. External action without internal alignment creates strain. Internal alignment makes external action feel purposeful, even when it is challenging. This window is not asking you to become someone new overnight. It is asking you to let go of what no longer fits and to stand honestly where you are now. From that place, movement becomes natural, not forced, not rushed, but aligned. The inner shift is the doorway. Once it occurs, stepping through becomes not only possible, but inevitable. When a spiritual window is actively open, it leaves traces. It does not announce itself with noise or spectacle, but it reveals itself through patterns, sensations, and inner confirmations that are difficult to ignore once you know how to recognize them. These signs are not meant to overwhelm you or pressure you. They are meant to guide you. If this window is open for you right now, there are indicators already present, quietly signaling that this moment matters. One of the clearest signs is a sense of urgency that feels focused rather than frantic. This is not anxiety. Anxiety scatters your thoughts and drains your energy. The urgency connected to an open window sharpens your attention. It brings a seriousness to certain thoughts, decisions, or conversations. You may notice that something specific keeps returning to your awareness, even when you try to distract yourself. That persistence is not coincidence. It is emphasis. Another sign is emotional clarity paired with internal pressure. You may feel a strange mix of calm and weight at the same time. Calm because something feels right or necessary, and weight because you know avoiding it is no longer an option. This combination often confuses people because they expect clarity to feel light and pressure to feel chaotic. In moments of timing, clarity can feel heavy because it carries responsibility. That weight is not meant to crush you, it is meant to ground you. Repetition is another strong indicator. You may encounter the same message, idea, or theme multiple times in a short span. Different sources, different words, but the same underlying direction. This repetition is not redundancy. It is confirmation. When a window is open, guidance often repeats because timing is sensitive. The repetition is a way of saying, pay attention now. If you find yourself hearing the same truth from multiple angles, that is a sign you are being positioned to act. You may also notice a shift in your tolerance for misalignment. Things you once ignored now bother you. Situations you used to endure now feel heavier. This does not mean you are becoming impatient or critical. It means your internal alignment is adjusting, and what no longer fits is becoming more obvious. Windows often open when tolerance drops, because movement becomes necessary. Discomfort becomes a signal rather than a nuisance. Another sign is a sudden clarity about what you do not want. Sometimes windows reveal direction by elimination before they reveal destination. You may not know exactly where you are going yet, but you know where you cannot stay. That knowing is powerful. It narrows your focus and prepares you to move when the next step becomes visible. Do not dismiss this clarity just because it is incomplete. Partial clarity is often enough to begin. You might also experience an increase in internal dialogue around courage. Thoughts like, I know I need to do this, or I can't keep putting this off, may surface more frequently. These are not intrusive thoughts. They are signals that your inner resolve is strengthening. When a window is open, resolve rises to meet opportunity. You are being prepared internally for action externally. Peace beneath uncertainty is another key sign. You may feel unsure about outcomes, but there is a steady sense beneath that uncertainty telling you that movement is right. This peace does not remove questions, but it anchors you while you hold them. Anxiety demands answers before movement. Peace allows movement without answers. If you feel grounded even while uncertain, that is a strong indicator of alignment. Time sensitivity is also noticeable. You may feel that now matters in a way it did not before. Tasks, decisions, or conversations feel time-bound. This does not mean you are running out of time in general. It means this particular moment carries weight. Windows create a heightened awareness of timing. You sense that delaying will change something, even if you cannot articulate exactly what. You may also notice subtle resistance arising around the very thing you feel drawn to. Diffuses service. Distractions increase. Doubt speaks louder. This resistance is not proof that you are wrong. Often, it is proof that the moment matters. Resistance tends to rise when movement threatens old patterns. The key is not to fight the resistance aggressively, but to recognize it for what it is. A signal that you are near a threshold. Finally, one of the most telling signs is a quiet inner knowing that feels steady rather than emotional. Not excitement, not fear, just a grounded sense of this is important. That knowing does not argue. It waits. It remains present even when you try to ignore it. When a window is open, that knowing becomes difficult to silence. If several of these signs resonate with you, it is not accidental. They are not appearing to pressure you, but to orient you. Windows do not open to confuse. They open to align. Recognizing the signs does not force action, but it prepares you for it. What matters most now is not rushing but responding. Awareness is the first step through any window. And if you are seeing these signs, awareness has already begun. When a window opens, Awareness alone is not the goal. Awareness prepares you, but action is what completes the moment. This is where many people hesitate, not because they do not understand, but because action requires commitment. What heaven is waiting for right now is not a dramatic leap or a flawless execution. It is a deliberate response, a step that says, I am aligned enough to move, even if everything is not yet clear. The action required in this moment is often simpler than people expect, but simpler does not mean easier. It may be a decision you have been postponing, a conversation you have been avoiding, or a boundary you have been unwilling to set. It may be an internal commitment rather than an external announcement. Heaven does not always wait for visible acts, it waits for resolved ones. The action begins where hesitation ends. One of the most important things to understand here is that intention is not the same as obedience. Intention lives in thought. Obedience lives in motion. Many people intend to change, intend to respond, intend to move when the time feels right. But windows respond to movement, not intention. This is why action matters more than how confident you feel about it. Confidence grows as you move, not before. The action heaven is waiting for is also specific to you. It will not look identical to someone else's response. That is why comparison is unhelpful here. Your step may seem small to others, but it carries weight because it is aligned with your path. What matters is not the size of the step, but the direction. A step in the right direction during a narrow window carries more impact than large efforts made later without alignment. There is also an element of trust involved. Acting now requires trusting that support will meet you as you move. This does not mean acting recklessly or without discernment. It means acting honestly. Honest action acknowledges fear without submitting to it. Honest action admits uncertainty without letting it decide. Heaven responds to that kind of honesty because it reflects willingness rather than perfection. Another key aspect of this action is timeliness. Waiting until the pressure lifts often means waiting until the window has closed. This does not mean rushing impulsively, but it does mean recognizing that delay changes conditions. The action is meant to happen while urgency is present, because urgency sharpens focus. When urgency fades, distractions return, and clarity can blur. That is why now matters. You may also notice that the action you are being asked to take disrupts comfort. That is not accidental. Comfort keeps things static. Windows exist to move you forward. The discomfort you feel is not a warning sign. It is a stretching sign. Stretching creates space for growth. If the action felt entirely comfortable, it would likely not be transformative. This is also a moment where obedience outweighs understanding. You may not yet know why this step matters as much as it does. Understanding often comes later, once movement reveals context. Many people look back and realize that a small act of obedience during a brief window changed far more than they expected. That realization usually comes in hindsight, not beforehand. The action heaven is waiting for may also involve release. Releasing an old identity, an outdated expectation, or a habit that no longer aligns. Release is an action, even though it looks passive from the outside. Letting go requires decision. It requires choosing not to cling. That choice opens hands so that something new can be received. As you consider what your step might be, notice what feels highlighted rather than what feels loud. The loudest option is not always the right one. The right one often feels steady, serious, and quietly insistent. It does not argue. It waits. That is the action being asked of you. Take this moment seriously, but not fearfully. You are not being tested. You are being invited. Invitations are meant to be answered, not analyzed endlessly. This window exists because you are capable of responding to it. Capability does not mean mastery. It means readiness. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed. Type "I move in faith" in the comments if you are ready. Blessing code 618 is now activated. What you are hearing right now is not just for your life. It is meant to travel farther than you can see. When you act in moments like this, you become a carrier of light, and Scripture declares that those who sow in faith will reap in joy. I feel led to speak directly to you. Your support in this moment becomes fuel for voices that reach souls standing at their own narrow windows. When you activate Super Thanks, membership, or give through PayPal using the link in the description or the PayPal QR code on the screen, you are responding prophetically, not financially. Heaven records obedience before it counts amounts. I bless every giver with overflow, clarity, and divine acceleration. Act now, and let your giving speak louder than words. Stepping forward during a narrow window does not mean moving recklessly. Alignment and protection move together. When timing is divine, protection is already woven into the path, but it must be aligned with intentionally. This is not about rushing ahead without wisdom. It is about moving with awareness while trusting that covering is active. Protection does not stop movement. It supports it. And understanding how to align with that protection matters now more than ever. Protection during transition begins with discernment. Discernment is not suspicion, and it is not fear. It is clarity about what to engage and what to ignore. As you move forward, you may notice an increase in noise, opinions, doubts, external voices, even your own internal commentary. Protection involves choosing which voices shape your decisions. Not every voice deserves equal weight. Alignment requires filtering. Discernment keeps you from being pulled off course by distractions that feel urgent but are ultimately irrelevant. Another layer of protection is pace. Moving forward does not mean abandoning balance. Windows require response, not burnout. Protection includes knowing when to move decisively and when to pause briefly to recalibrate. The mistake many people make is swinging between extremes, either freezing completely or rushing without reflection. Aligned movement is steady. It carries urgency without chaos. If you feel pressured to move faster than your clarity allows, pause just enough to reconnect with direction, not long enough to fall back into delay. Boundaries also play a critical role in protection. As you step into alignment, old dynamics may resist change. People, habits, or environments that benefited from your hesitation may push back. Protection does not always look like removing those things immediately. Sometimes it looks like redefining your access to them. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. I determine what enters your attention and what does not. Setting boundaries during this window preserves the momentum you are building. There is also protection in obedience itself. When you move in alignment with timing, you step into flow. Flow does not eliminate obstacles, but it reduces unnecessary friction. Things may still require effort, but they will feel purposeful rather than draining. That sense of purpose is protective. It keeps you from questioning every step and second-guessing your direction constantly. Obedience quiets internal conflict, and that quiet is a form of protection. As you move forward, it is important to stay connected rather than isolated. Isolation weakens discernment. Connection strengthens it. This is why shared awareness matters. Engaging with others who recognize the significance of this moment reinforces clarity. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to like it, share it, and comment your alignment. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. These actions are not just supportive gestures. They anchor you in a space of collective focus and protection. Alignment grows stronger when it is acknowledged. Another aspect of protection is recognizing when resistance is external rather than internal. Internal resistance often sounds like fear or doubt. External resistance often appears as obstacles, delays, or unexpected challenges. Not all resistance means stop. Sometimes resistance confirms that movement is correct. The key is to respond, not react. Protection lies in responding thoughtfully rather than emotionally. Emotional reactions drain energy. Thoughtful responses preserve it. You may also need to protect your expectations. Alignment does not guarantee immediate results. It guarantees right direction. Expecting instant outcomes can create disappointment that weakens resolve. Protection includes patience with the process. Progress may be subtle at first. That does not mean it is absent. Momentum often builds quietly before it becomes visible. Trusting that process protects you from discouragement. There is protection in remembering why you moved in the first place. When doubt arises later, return to the clarity you had when you stepped forward. That clarity was not accidental. It was given for this very purpose, to anchor you when emotions fluctuate. Writing it down, acknowledging it, or simply recalling it can restore confidence when challenges appear. As this window continues to unfold, understand that you are not exposed. You are covered. Alignment does not remove responsibility, but it does provide support. You are being guided, not pushed. Protected, not pressured. Moving forward with awareness allows protection to remain active around you. If at any point you feel tempted to retreat simply because things feel unfamiliar, pause and remember this. Unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Growth often feels unfamiliar because it requires new posture. Protection ensures that while the terrain may change, you are not walking unguarded. Stay with this message. What comes next will help you understand why this movement matters more than you realize, and why this moment will make sense in hindsight in ways it may not yet make sense now. Once you step through a window like this, change does not always announce itself loudly. In fact, the first shifts are often subtle, internal, and quiet. Many people expect immediate external confirmation, dramatic results, or instant relief. But what changes first is alignment. And alignment reshapes everything else in time. The moment you move in obedience, something settles inside you. A tension you may not have realized you were carrying begins to loosen. That is often the first sign that movement was right. One of your earliest changes after stepping through is a shift in momentum. Even if circumstances look the same on the surface, the direction underneath them changes. You may notice that things begin to respond differently. Conversations flow more easily. Decisions feel less draining. Obstacles still exist, but they no longer feel random. They feel purposeful. This is because alignment replaces resistance with intention. You are no longer pushing blindly. You are moving with direction. Another change is clarity. Not complete clarity, but progressive clarity. When you step through the window, understanding begins to unfold in layers. You see why certain things had to end. You recognize why delays occurred. Pieces that once felt disconnected begin to relate to each other. This clarity often arrives after the step, not before it. That is why hesitation can keep people stuck in confusion. Movement unlocks understanding. You may also notice an increase in internal peace, even if external pressure rises. This can feel paradoxical. Challenges may still appear, but your response to them shifts. You feel less reactive, less scattered. That peace is not denial, it is grounding. It comes from knowing you are where you are meant to be, even when the path is still unfolding. Peace is one of the clearest confirmations that alignment has occurred. Another change involves identity. Stepping through a window often requires leaving behind an old version of yourself. After you move, that old version no longer fits the same way. You may find it harder to tolerate behaviors, environments, or mindsets that once felt normal. This is not arrogance or impatience. It is growth. When identity shifts, standards shift with it. You begin to live from a different center. Resistance may also change form. Before the step, resistance often shows up as hesitation or fear. After the step, it may appear as external challenges. This is not a sign of error. It is often confirmation. Movement disrupts stagnation, and disruption invites testing. The difference now is that you face resistance from a position of commitment rather than indecision. That makes all the difference. Resistance no longer controls the narrative. It becomes part of the refinement. You may also experience a heightened sense of responsibility. Stepping through a window carries weight because it affirms your ability to choose consciously. That responsibility is not meant to burden you. It is meant to empower you. You become more aware of your influence, your voice, and your decisions. You realize that what you do matters, not just for outcomes, but for integrity. Living with integrity brings a deep sense of fulfillment that comfort alone never can. Another shift is discernment. After stepping through, you often become more sensitive to timing. You recognize when to act and when to wait with greater accuracy. This is because honoring one window sharpens your awareness for the next. Alignment trains discernment. Each obedient step strengthens your ability to recognize future moments of significance. You may also notice that certain doors quietly close behind you. Not dramatically, not forcefully, but naturally. Opportunities that once tempted you lose their appeal. Paths that once seemed possible fade from focus. This is not loss. It is refinement. Closing doors protect you from returning to what no longer aligns. They free your attention for what lies ahead. Emotionally, you may feel both lighter and more serious at the same time. Lighter because you are no longer wrestling with indecision. More serious because you understand the weight of alignment. This seriousness is not heaviness. It is maturity. It marks a transition from drifting to directing. You are no longer simply reacting to life. You are participating in it consciously. Over time, you may look back and realize that stepping through this window changed more than you expected. Not always through one major event, but through a series of smaller shifts that altered your trajectory. A conversation that led to another. A decision that opened an unexpected door. A release that made room for something better. These changes compound. What changes after you step through is not just circumstance. It is posture. You stand differently. You choose differently. You trust yourself more because you trusted guidance when it mattered. That trust becomes a foundation you can build on. This is why windows matter. Not because they promise instant results, but because they initiate transformation. Once you step through, you are no longer who you were before. And what comes next responds to who you have become. There are moments in life that feel open-ended, forgiving, and flexible. This is not one of those moments. What makes January 27 distinct is not intensity, but narrowness. Narrowness does not mean hardness. It means precision. It means that timing matters more than usual, and alignment must meet the moment rather than assume it will repeat itself later. This is the part of the message many people struggle with, because narrow moments challenge the belief that everything can always be revisited at leisure. A narrow moment exists because conditions have aligned briefly. Circumstances, readiness, Awareness and permission have converged in a way that cannot be indefinitely sustained. Think of it like a tide that rises to allow passage. The tide does not stay high forever. It rises, creates access, and then recedes. Missing that moment does not destroy the destination, but it does change the journey. Often, it means waiting longer or taking a more difficult route. The narrowness of this moment is not meant to pressure you into panic. Panic clouds the judgment. Narrowness is meant to focus you. It asks you to recognize that this is not the time for endless deliberation or passive observation. It is a time for conscious response. When windows are wide, exploration is encouraged. When windows are narrow, decision becomes necessary. Many people delay because they believe waiting will bring more clarity. In narrow moments, waiting often brings less. This is because clarity is tied to motion during these windows. The longer one stands still, the more the window closes, and the harder it becomes to see clearly. This is why hesitation feels heavier now than it did before. That heaviness is not condemnation. It is feedback. It signals that standing still is no longer neutral. Another reason this moment is narrow is because it is connected to sequence. Some things cannot happen until something else is acknowledged or acted upon. Sequence does not bend easily. When a step is skipped, the system compensates by rerouting, not by pausing. This is why timing feels firm rather than flexible. The next phase is waiting for a response from this one. Until that response occurs, momentum cannot fully transfer. Narrow moments also test priorities. They reveal what truly matters by limiting options. When time feels abundant, distractions multiply. When time narrows, essentials rise to the surface. What you focus on now reveals what you value most. This is not about guilt or judgment. It is about awareness. An Aaron strips away excess and exposes core intention. There is also a humility required in narrow moments. They remind us that not everything bends to our preferences or schedules. They invite us to cooperate with timing rather than control it. This can be uncomfortable, especially for those accustomed to planning every detail. Narrow moments asked for trust over control. They asked for response over analysis. They asked for courage over comfort. It is important to understand that narrow does not mean unforgiving. Grace remains. Guidance remains. Support remains. What narrows is access, not compassion. Access to ease. Access to flow. Access to a particular route. Compassion does not disappear if the window closes, but the opportunity to move with less resistance may. This is why the message emphasizes understanding now, not later. Another aspect of narrowness is that it often feels quiet. There may not be dramatic signs or external countdowns. The narrowing is felt internally. A sense that delaying would cost something, even if you cannot articulate exactly what. That sense is not imagination. It is perception. Narrow moments are often discerned rather than announced. The danger of narrow moments is not making the wrong decision. It is making no decision at all. Indecision defaults to inaction, and inaction is still a choice when timing is involved. This is why the message carries urgency without fear. It does not say, choose perfectly. It says, choose consciously. If you are tempted to tell yourself that you will revisit this later, pause. That thought itself is often a sign of narrowing. Later is vague. Later assumes conditions will remain the same. Narrow moments do not promise sameness. They offer opportunity now. Recognizing that does not obligate you to rush blindly, but it does ask you to engage honestly. January 27 stands as one of these moments. Not because it is dramatic, but because it is specific. It does not demand everything from you. It asks for a response proportionate to the moment. Awareness, willingness, and movement in the right direction. That is all. Understanding the narrowness of this moment allows you to treat it with the respect it deserves. Not with fear, not with pressure, but with intention. Windows close quietly. Most people realize their significance in hindsight. You are being given the rare gift of foresight. This moment is narrow not to limit you, but to guide you. And guidance, when recognized in time, changes everything that follows. As this message comes to a close, it is important to ground everything you have heard in assurance, not tension. This was never meant to leave you feeling burdened or overwhelmed. It was meant to leave you strengthened, focused, and uplifted. The purpose of this message was not to pressure you into fear, but to awaken you into readiness. And readiness is not anxiety. Readiness is peace paired with resolve. You were not shown this window to test you. You were shown this window because you are capable of responding to it. Even if your response feels imperfect, even if your understanding feels incomplete, your willingness matters. Divine guidance does not wait for flawless execution. It responds to honest alignment. What matters most is that you did not ignore the nudge. You listen. That alone shifts more than you realize. As you move forward from this moment, carry this assurance with you. You are not alone in what comes next. Protection is not something you must chase. It is already present. Strength is not something you must manufacture. It is supplied as needed. Clarity will continue to unfold, not all at once, but step by step. This is how alignment works. It reveals just enough light for the next movement, and then more light as you proceed. If at any point you feel doubt trying to return, remember the clarity you felt when this message first resonated. That clarity was real. It was not emotional manipulation. It was recognition. Return to that recognition when questions arise. It will steady you. It will remind you why this moment mattered. There is also peace in knowing that even if the path ahead holds challenges, they are not meaningless. Challenges encountered in alignment refine rather than drain. They shape rather than scatter. You are not walking into resistance without purpose. You are walking into growth with covering. A distinction changes everything. You do not need to announce your next step to the world. Some movements are meant to be quiet. Some obediences are meant to be private. What matters is not who sees you move, but that you move. Heaven notices alignment long before people do. Let this message settle gently within you. Do not rush to analyze it away. Do not dismiss it once the moment passes. Carry it with you as a reminder that timing matters, that awareness is a gift, and that responding when it counts changes trajectories. You are stronger than you think, not because you never hesitate, but because you choose alignment even when hesitation exists. That is courage. That is growth. That is readiness. Type "I am walking forward" in the comments if you receive this. Lesson code 901 is now activated. What has been released over you in this message is not meant to stop here. It is meant to flow outward like a living river. The word declares that when we give, it is pressed down and overflowing, and right now God is speaking that promise directly through this mission. I want to speak plainly to you. Your obedience in giving becomes light for someone standing in darkness, waiting for a message like this to find them. When you activate Super Thanks, membership, or give through PayPal using the link in the description or the PayPal QR code on the screen, you are sowing into souls, not content. I release blessing over every giver, clarity, protection, and divine acceleration over your life. Do not delay what heaven is prompting now. Act. and let your support become part of the testimony that follows.